the company we keep, Divya Kannan, author. She's going to be talking to us on this book. And we have again Giridhar Gopal, director of Addison, and Shivakumar, director of Roots and Company, and Dinay Kamath, editor into Business Line, associate editor into Business Line, will be joining us. On 14th, we have Dr. Arunmozhi Varman, ophthalmologist, is going to talk to us how technology is going to be helping us in. I think this is happening on 14th of June. Then on 15th of June, not to be missed even, please block your diary. Then this we are going to think how the people really achieved success, what made them achieve that, and how some of the outstanding sportsmen achieved this, and what leadership lessons we can learn from them. And what we are going to be talking to is, again, we have our Grandmaster, Viswanathan Anand, chess Grandmaster. He is going to be there with us. Along with them, Geet Sethi. Geet Sethi is the world billiard champion. He is going to be with us. And Viren Raskuna, the Indian hockey team captain, Olympian, he is going to be there. Three of us are going to be discussing and what makes the leader and what lessons you can learn from the sports. And we are also going to talk about Olympic gold quest. I know how many of you know that to get that few grams of gold, how much of effort goes behind, and it will be a nice event. There are a number of other events. I won't take your time. And coming to today's event, leadership and process approach. When Dr. John asked us, we cannot say no because he never allowed you to say no, actually. That is a quality we must learn from the management technique. So when he said straight away, we agreed. We have some outstanding panel to discuss on very, very important subject of leadership and process approach. When I read the synopsis, it's so interesting that how the process approach, and I firmly believe for everything what you do today, the failure or success, leadership what matters. If you have a good leader and a good leader with a process approach, I'll be outturning. Ladies and gentlemen, put your hand together to welcome a distinguished panelist for this evening. Let me have the privilege of first inviting onto the stage Vasu Krishnan, author of the book Leadership and Process Approach. Mr. Vasu Krishnan, please. Then George Suresh, managing partner of Vasanth Products. Managing partner of Vasanth Products. George Suresh, sir. George Suresh, sir. Yes. Then Commodore M D Menon of Indian Navy, my war veteran, my colleague, Commodore Menon. Then Ravichandran will be joining us online. And Dr. K.C. John, Director of Faculty Management. Sri Ramachandra Institute of Higher Education Research. He'll be leading the conversation with them. May I request you, please, ladies and gentlemen, a big round of applause to distinguished panelists and the author this evening. Please come. What are Ravichandran sir? Lock Pantara. So Professor Ravichandran will be joining us, and he's all know Professor Ravichandran from IIM Ahmedabad. Before I hand over the session to dear friend John, let me briefly introduce the distinguished panel for this evening. Author is Mr. Vasu Krishnan. Is a manufacturing engineering professional, and he's worked a couple of years in experience in Billai Steel Plant. After that, he graduated from IIM Ahmedabad. He has over 50 years of experience in various process, discrete and manufacturing industries. His expertise has been honed through hands-on experience learning, as well as through his role as a quality system auditor in a global certification company, and is also registered principal auditor of QMS IRCA UK. Very welcome, sir. Pleasure to have you with us once again. Congratulations on your book. Let me have the pleasure of introducing our dear good friend, Dr. K.C. John. John is a director and professor of Faculty of Management of Sri Ramachandra Institute of Higher Education and Research. It's a university in Chennai. He was also a distinguished professor of strategy and entrepreneurship at the Great Lake Institute of Management between 2013 and 2020. Dr. John's research interests are in entrepreneurship, innovation, and sustainable business and institution building. He is a mentor, first generation of entrepreneurs, and very warm welcome to Dr. John. Pleasure to have you with us this evening. Let me introduce Professor Ravichandran, hoping that he'll be joining us online very soon through Zoom. And he's distinguished professor of management, part-time, Indian Institute of Technology, Mandi, Himachal Pradesh. The professor is Ravichandran, has earned his PhD in mathematics from Indian Institute of Technology, Madras, then Chennai, and Faculty of Indian Institute of Management, Ahmedabad, since June 18, retired now. His teachers' interest includes decision science, operation management, strategy, and he's very closely connected with MMA, and he's the one who wrote a case study on MMA, which is very, very popular in many other management institutions, how an NGO, how a not-for-profit organization can function efficiently, that I know, but he wrote, and we have a very good model there, and which he wrote. It's very, very popular. It's also extensively discussed in all the IIMs. Let me have the privilege of welcoming and introducing George Suresh. George Suresh has been the managing partner of Vasanth Products, and he supplies most to Ministry of Defense, and also major supplier to Toyota, Kia, Hyundai, and manufacturing exports of tractors, and supply also to Royal Enfield. And over a short span of time, Vasanth Products has grown from a single unit and a basic machinery to now 3 units comprising of modern state-of-the-art precision tool manufacturing, including CNC laser cutting machines and much more. And Vasanth Products had achieved 100% PPM certification from Hyundai in the year 2012, and also has grown considerably by a factor of more than 10x in as many years through a combination of customer focus and structured process of innovation growth. Plans are set to add another unit in the next 1 or 2 years on outskirts of Chennai. Very welcome to George Suresh. I think one day we should have you speak on your success story exclusively. What made you achieve all this laurels? Then let me have the privilege of introducing veteran Commodore M D Menon, retired. Menon is a graduate of postgraduate in electrical engineering from IIT Delhi, joined Indian Navy after a brief stint with English Electric in 1971 war. He served in the Russian frigate and he was in charge of electrical and weapon department, covering process operation, maintenance, and quality. Then we also have, after nearly 20 years of service in Navy, he opted for voluntary retirement and continued his area of quality assurance, SDS, and well-known quality assurance, and it's also inspection service organization. Subsequently, assigned were aimed at organizational transformation through structured approach at ISO 9001 in a number of organizations, large and small. Very warm welcome to you, Commodore. It's a pleasure to have you with us. Ladies and gentlemen, a big round of applause to our distinguished panel this evening. May I request you all to please display your cover of the book, may photograph. Please take a picture. Yeah, sure. This is the give another. Yeah, this is just for picture. We should take come. Can you note us come and sign? Front on it. You can keep one picture. Okay. You should have a good cover. More of symbol. Ladies and gentlemen, as usual, if you have any questions, we will pass on the microphone to you. Please be brief to the questions. All the viewers watching the program live on various social media channels of MMA, webinar, YouTube, Facebook, Twitter, LinkedIn, and also Voice of MMA Radio. As usual, if you have any questions, please share the question to the number which is flashed on your screen. The distinguished panelists are very, very happy to respond to all your questions. And whatever query you have, is the right place, sit in your own home comfort, and you can ask all the questions relevant to what is process management, manufacturing. It will be a very, very informative system to you. Over to Johnson.
Thank you, Group Captain Vijay Kumar. It's always a pleasure to be back here, and we greatly appreciate your generosity in finding a slot for us, and it's done a great world of difference for a debutant book author. So thank you very much. Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. It's a pleasure to welcome all of you here for a book debut, right? And the debutant author is only 73 years young. 76 years young, right? And it's very rare that at that age somebody picks up the courage to reminiscence about 50 and odd years of experience and distill lessons from them and write something. And so we need to give Vasu a big applause. What Vasu has done in his leadership and the process approach, essentially we need to also be thankful to the pandemic, pandemic has converted many of us into authors. And he found his motivation to write the entire stuff there. And we want to congratulate you. What he has done in this book is distill lessons learned from over past half a decade, spent passionately in the manufacturing industry across the length and breadth of the country, ranging from Bhilai Steel to many more manufacturing stuff. And then finally, he came over to Chennai and worked with the Murugappa group here, both in TI as well as EID pairing. And so what he has done is take time to reflect on the entire leadership strategy and see what could he put together for the next generation of leaders who would join the manufacturing sector. The leadership task for manufacturing sector is to address simultaneously the changes in organization structure, operations process, and employees' skill sets, because that is a very mobile target right now, enabled by the manufacturing operations management system. So we were discussing over the cup of tea in terms of the entire excitement which he has brought along with the eminent panelists. So Vasu suggests that continuous improvement methods with an adaptive manufacturing operations management architecture will bring about transformation in manufacturing strategy, which is very important for us. He has used an innovative approach of delving into series of cases where he has worked himself and then distill from there what kind of leadership strategy which puts importance to the process as well as bring together the manufacturing operations management systems and people and skill sets becomes very important. And we look forward to listen and see the nuggets of wisdom which he has put in the book. We have two distinguished panelists. Group captain read out their biographical narratives. What I only would tell is that they are practitioners, right? And it's very important to hear to the practitioner's perspective in terms of manufacturing leadership and how process orientation would help them. And so the way we want to structure the evening today is first we would listen to our debutant author. He would tell what his motivation has been and what sparked the entire creative urge for him to put together the book and what are the main focus of the book. And then we will go across to each of the panelists and we will request them to reflect not only on the book, but tell based on their experience as practitioners, what are the current challenges in the manufacturing sector and how process approach would help the country to move forward in the Make in India strategy, right? We are all looking at that. So without much ado, I want to invite Vasu to come over and tell us all about the motivation, all about the book. And we are told that he has got up in his sleeve 2 more books. So we should be willing to look at what he has not written in this book, which he's keeping for the next book. Thank you very much for coming over here. And I request Vasu to come over. Thank you. So just wanted to make a correction. Dr. Ravichandran, who has agreed to join in the digital media, he would join from there. Right. So that would be good. Thanks. Okay. Yeah. So,
good afternoon to all of you all, or rather good evening. Yeah. So at the outset, my sincere thanks to MMA and Group Captain Vijay for hosting this function. You know, this is, I really, what I would say, commend the initiative of MMA to, to consider what has been, has been told about me as a debutant author, which is absolutely true. This is the first book which I'm publishing. writing a book is one thing, but publishing is a different ball game altogether. So that is the one. Then, of course, I would like to thank the panelists for their presence. The brief write-up does not do adequate justice for their role as individuals in transforming organizations and individuals during the course of their careers and during the course of their professional, personal and professional growth. It really does not go into, because I do know these gentlemen for something like 20 to 30 years. So I know what they have actually accomplished, and perhaps, we belong to a different generation that we really don't like to blow our own trumpets. We are a little reticent about such issues. So all the more reason, that they have to be appreciated for what they have really accomplished. Then, of course, by thanks to the individual members of MMA and the other members of MMA who have turned up. Then, of course, the special invitees who have turned up, as well as alumni IMA members who have turned up. Thank you all once again for turning up in these numbers. And at the same time, I would also like to acknowledge the individuals mentioned in the acknowledgement page, some of whom are also here. So there's a certain degree of repetition there. And of course, my family members, my son Karthik is right here. My younger son is not here. He's out of the country, but he's really he's chipped in to make sure that the cover page came out.
Yeah,
I just sent him a photograph of the Mariner's
wheel,
which was there in my house, and he did the rest. Yeah. Then, of course, I had sent a few chapters, to my batchmates from IIM Ahmedabad to review, and they also gave me the feedback, and that's how the book took shape.
Sorry, welcome.
Yes, Professor, thank you so much for coming. Good evening. Yeah. Yeah.
Good evening. Good evening and congratulations, Vasu.
Yeah, thank you so much.
Happy to.
Good to meet you in person, but nevertheless, good to meet you.
Yeah, I messed it up, so I messed up the date, so it's okay. I was thinking it's tomorrow, so yeah, okay. Good evening.
Thank you. Thank you for being here. Yeah. So, and before I proceed further with, I would also like to acknowledge with thanks the copyright permissions received from a number of organizations listed in the bibliography, such as Automotive Industry Action Group, Goldratt One Foundation, EFKM, Deming, TPM, and Japan Quality Award Councils, for permission to reproduce specific extracts. It's a very interesting thing, dealing with such people. They never knew me from Adam, and yet they wholly cooperated. And one of them asked me a question: why is it you are going back in time to the Japan Quality Award? They said, why are you going back to the earlier version? I said, that's because the earlier version is far easier to understand than what you subsequently done. The same thing for the EFKM award. The earlier version is far easier compared to their subsequent development. So first again, I started writing this book during lockdown 1.0. And of course, the first reference was to the syllabus on manufacturing excellence, which I had drafted at the suggestion of Professor Ravichandran. Is he still there? Yeah, he's gone off. He's there. Okay. Prof, can you hear me now? Okay. I hope he's hearing, because he, in fact, I think way back about in the year, in the year, I think this was about 2012 or 2013 when I met him in Chennai. At that point in time, he suggested that I, write a book on, or prepare a syllabus on manufacturing excellence. So that's how it started. And this was during lockdown 1.0. So time was kind of hanging heavy on my hands. And that's the reason why, good, you're back. And again, what I was just sharing with everybody was the credit for this book should go to you, sir, because you gave me the idea of making a syllabus for manufacturing excellence. And subsequently, I referred to that for, as a first reference for writing the book in terms of the contents of the book. Yeah. So here, then subsequently, I decided to cover, my professional career over half a dozen, over 50 years, including certain important lessons I learned in the last 5 years as a lead auditor QMS in a global certification body, because the amount of training inputs that one got in especially in an international organization like that, it really is, eye-opening, and it's a different experience altogether. So coming back to the book is divided in 2 parts. One is the organizations where I had worked, and the story is followed by the concept. So if you take Bhilai Steel Plant, that was my first job. Nobody ever forgets his first job in terms of the extent of involvement. And this was in the what I would call it as in the Russian era, when USSR was still great. And the Russians believed in leading by example. And if there's a hard way of doing a job, the Russians believed in doing it harder. That was their philosophy. So this was in the era where, what I would call it as the pride of workmanship, a pride of doing a job to the fullest extent of one's capability was called for. That was the kind of era in those days, in the early and late 60s. And that is what actually, as I mentioned in the book, it instills the values and beliefs, which in turn ensure the individual's resilience to face the various challenges throughout life. So that was the process industry, and subsequent organizations were discrete manufacturing, and the story is in all cases followed by the concept. The other story I would like to highlight is the one about the Kudrumukaino project. Fern Rochford was the project director, an absolutely different type of leader compared to all the other leaders. I mean, his project focus was extraordinary. He believed, and this is interesting, group captain, nobody reports to me. If I want information, I'll get it from you. You just go ahead and do your job. That was his philosophy. And he said, we have a project control department. Their job is to give the monthly report to the customer. So let them do their job. That was his style. It went to such an extent that he would question everything. There was and let me share this with you. In those days, the bid documents used to be generated on foolscap paper, this rough-looking paper, government stationery. And Rochford was the first to question that, why are you doing that? Why can't you do it on A4 bond paper? Every small thing, including the practice of Indian inking the drawings, he questioned. And he said, if you change the settings, you don't have to do that. So a combination of business process re-engineering, cutting out the non-value added activities, a combination of project focus, and it was appropriate that the corresponding concept is the critical chain by this Israeli author, Eliyahu Goldratt. So, so he also, in fact, through his books only, I got the idea that perhaps we should start with the story and then go to the concept. So, to that extent, I'm grateful to the Goldratt Foundation, for giving me the copyright permission, and also for giving me the idea that this is one way of communicating to the readers. So, there are other case studies which are not exactly complementary to the organization. But again, if you take Dunlop, it's a classic case of disinvestment gone wrong. If disinvestment had to be done, it has to be done through a process, and to make sure that, whosoever is acquiring, the acquisition is acquired by somebody noteworthy. The best example I can give of that is Ford's disinvestment in Jaguar as a brand, and also right now in the Ahmedabad factory which has been taken over by Tatas. So it's not that organizations fold up, it's the manner in which they fold up that's important, and how they ensure a certain degree of continuity that goes thereafter. So what I have tried to do is, I have tried to identify the enablers. What are the enablers? The enabler is a process approach. Most organizations have a process approach. It's not that they don't have. It's a question of how effective it is, of identifying what the process measures of performance are there. If you go back in time, maybe about 30 odd years ago, you would find that there used to be something like, there used to be a concept of sales returns. Sales returns 30, 40 years ago was about 1 to 1.5%. Now 1 to 1.5% works out to something like 10,000 to 15,000 ppm defective products. Mr. George Suresh, what is your view on 10 to 15,000 ppm defective product? What would happen to, let us say, what do you call, tier 1 or tier 2 supplying that to Hyundai? What do you think would happen? He's out. That person is out. That's all, as simple as that. So it's not acceptable. So unfortunately, what has happened in the process is in this entire business of organizational growth, and I would say the hype, is that financial performance is considered as the gold standard. And if the performance with respect to other critical parameters, process parameters such as quality or delivery is lacking, as long as one could get away with it, so much the better. So this is the main focus is process measures of performance are very straightforward. Quality, delivery, and cost. Where do you stand with regard to that? Or rather, process measures of performance with regard to effectiveness and efficiency. And I come to a classic question. In the process of executing an order, what would get sacrificed? Would quality or delivery or cost get sacrificed? So this is something which one has seen over a period of time. And there are various ways in which there is one case study here when precisely that was not done, in which after a gap of 2 years, we found out a potential failure at the customer's end. And at the last minute, it was decided to delay the delivery to the customer. So I was personally involved in that activity. So I do not know if Mr. Neeraj Shah, I had requested him to be present. Apparently, he's not made it here. He's managing director of Keldon, and that was when I was working there. And he agreed to that, and I went to made sure that the product was reworked to take care of the failure mode. And thereafter, I explained to the customer, look, he was getting a little perturbed. He said, why is it your delivery is not, the item is not reached me? It was explained to him saying, this is the reason, this is a potential failure mode. If we had sent it to you and later on, if this problem had occurred, you would have come down on us like a ton of bricks. So we wanted to make sure it didn't happen. So these are cases in which very clear understanding of the customer requirements, not stated, unstated customer requirement causing a potential failure was taken care of, because a similar incident had occurred about a couple of years ago in supplies to another steel plant. So these are the point I'm trying to emphasize here again is lessons learned. In the process of organizational growth, do we retain the lessons learned? Do we ensure that it's not forgotten when individuals leave? More often than not, when individuals leave, the knowledge that they have bequeathed to their organizations is lost. So that is something which has to be taken care of. In fact, there is a clause in 7.1.4, if I'm not mistaken, in ISO 9001:2015, which refers to organizational knowledge and the necessity for retaining it in the organization. So if I were to sum up what the book is about, the book is essentially about a combination of leadership styles, a combination of the process approach, and more important, the ability to look at a process, and if there's something and the process is not delivering, to change the process, tweak the process, make sure it delivers on measures of performance pertaining to quality and delivery. The best example I am going back to Hyundai, because I spent a fair amount of time as the head of quality in a tier 1 supplying to Hyundai. And as the head of quality in the tier 1, Hyundai were very clear that I had to be there on the front line, on the firing line, and also for any customer complaint. And the best part about my experience was with them was that they respect somebody who's able to withstand that kind of pressure, somebody who's able to, give answers, not off-the-cuff answers, not glib answers, who takes a bit of time. In some cases, it took me about 3 or 4 hours to find out what exactly was going on and get back to them. There is also a case study in which we identified a failure mode at the customer's premises. And even though Sharda Motors was not design responsible, we took it upon ourselves to tell the customer that, look, if you permit us to change the design of this component, you won't have the problem. And the answer we got was, go ahead. Again, it was made very plain to them. Officially, HMC, Hyundai Motor Corporation, is authorized to do it. We are not. Doesn't matter. Try it out and let's see what happens. It worked. So, see the understanding. We come to the last part of this topic. That is with regard to the subject of FMEA. Now, failure mode effects analysis is a topic, and let me share this with all of you all. In 1994, most of the the automotive industry action group, comprising of representatives of Ford, General Motors, and Chrysler Corporation, they decided to collaborate, even though they were competitors, to come up with some kind of a common requirement, customer requirement, because their common suppliers informed them, look, it's too difficult to deal with 3 people having 3 different requirements. So why don't you all give us a common requirement? So that's how it started. In this process, they decided to come up with their own publications, because the existing textbooks on the subject of either statistical process control or measurement systems were not up to scratch. So they came up with their textbooks, but reference manuals, I would call it, on advanced product quality planning and control plan, production part approval process, the failure mode effects analysis covering design and process failures, and as well as fundamental SPC and measurement system analysis. So these have been revised over a period of time. And why I'm spending so much of time on this is essentially because it has a reference in a very broad context to other industries whereby you could apply the same logic. So I'll just go to my presentation now. Yeah, I had sent it by yeah, is there? Yeah, thank you. Yeah, that's it. So first page. Yeah, first page. Before you have a leadership thing, the first page is there, no? The introduction, the title of the book. Title is that. Yeah, right. Yeah, go to the next one. Yeah. So I go to the bottom. Yeah, this one, isn't it? Okay. Yeah, leadership of the process approach. Yeah. I think, yeah, I can see it there. You're right. Yeah. So here, the first point is there's a fundamental assumption that organizations like individuals would like to present the best version of themselves. This is something which I saw, in fact, in somewhere in some particular TV program, that it's the common endeavor of individuals to always present the best version of themselves. Given that there's a fair amount of differential learning going on, people do have their ups and downs. Life is not a 45-degree slope, everything going perfectly. But nevertheless, with all that, they would like to present the best version of themselves. So a process is basically, a series of actions or steps taken in order to achieve an end. And the PDCA cycle is a plan, do, check, act. The C stands for check, and more often than not, it is not there. So a process is therefore a set of interconnected activities having an impact on corresponding measures of performance. Now, when we talk in terms of measures of performance, it doesn't rule out other things. Business process re-engineering to cut out the non-value added activities. It doesn't cut out benchmarking. You can do all of that. One does not rule out the other. So let me come to a last point here, which is definition which is there in the automotive standard. And these words of wisdom, actually, if you really look at it, they are these, the special characteristics are those characteristics, attributes or variables of products and processes affecting fit, form, function, statutory and regulatory requirements. And corresponding organizations could either be design responsible or not. Now here, look at it this way. Forget about engineering products where there are so many requirements, but from the automotive industry affecting performance, performing function. Take a simple thing like a sachet, like a sachet which is served in which contains pickles on a train. How many of you all can open the sachet with your fingers? What would do is people would use their teeth, very unhygienic. So what other people would be looking for is a pair of scissors. Okay, that's a special characteristic. You have to be able to open the sachet without using a scissor or using something else. So like this, if you apply this concept to your own product, whatever it is, you'll find there are a lot of failure modes which could be improved upon. So that is the product and its packaging itself lead to so many problems. So I just gave one example of that. And yeah, let's go to the next one. Yeah. So the PDCA cycle is in process and discrete manufacturing organizations. Now I have included engineering, consumer durables, construction, automotive, aviation, and pharma. Aviation, definitely, I'll come to that in some time. So leadership styles and their impact on process measures of performance. Now this is important. You could have either Kulwant Singh Nagi with his charismatic leadership and, in those days, comments were there in the register and people would read the register. Minimal documentation was what was followed there. And or you could have Paul Rochefort, who was very explicit in terms of what he expected, and at the same time very relaxed. I must share this with you, Group Captain, that this is one of the few organizations in which I had worked, in which people worked exactly 8 hours. They didn't spend an hour of overtime more, and they were very relaxed because the bosses were relaxed. There's something unique which I have not seen elsewhere. The whole idea is that it's the ability to communicate a certain degree of confidence to the people that are reporting to you, which in turn drives their performance. So these are some of the other characteristics which leadership styles have an impact on process performance. Yeah. Of course, continuous and continual improvement included, educational institutions included, absolutely. I've audited almost all the major educational institutions in southern India, and unfortunately, I find a lot of things are still lacking there. The fundamental understanding of certain words like review, verification, and validation. Let me share another example of review. This is a computer-generated document and does not require any signature. It's a very classic line which comes from banks. Now, that is Pontius Pilate washing his hands in a silver bowl. Absolving oneself of responsibility. If a document has been generated, he or she has to sign it, period. Take responsibility for it. And if supposing there's an error in it, change the document, accept responsibility. That's the thing. Why should organizations get away with this, this kind of statement, this is computer generated and nobody needs sign it. This is just not accepted. So, okay, what is not included in the scope of this book? Trading organizations and the subject of service quality, because this is a subject by itself. Service quality is not something related only to banks, logistic organizations, and other organizations supplying service, in the business of offering services. It also includes things like warranty service. I've got a printer which is shuttling between Reliance Digital and HP for the last 1 month. I still haven't got my printer back because those two guys are not on talking terms with each other. So you see, this is the state of warranty affairs in this country. Then you have services like in the construction people in the construction industry offering services and taking the customer, causing difficulty to the customers. That's what I put it. Anyway, so that's the reason why this is not included. But anyway, if any organization which is involved in the process of improvement and organizational transformation can apply the process approach, it's only a question of asking some very simple questions, bordering on 5 W's and 1 H. So that's it. So let's go to the structured growth. The book considers structured growth, considering the context of the organization and the relevant needs and expectations of stakeholders, not limited to financial stakeholders. Let me explain. The context of the organization is the industry. It includes the needs and expectations of interested parties and what and how, and therefore what would be their strategy in meeting those needs. So that, of course, the impact of leadership and leadership styles. I come back to this Mirasdar type of leadership style. The person is not bothered about delegation. He said, I'm a big man. I mean, nobody should ask me questions. Ask these questions to people who are reporting to me. This kind of organization is something like the dinosaur, which is off. Running out of time, is it? Yeah, sorry. Yeah. So, yeah, process measures of performance I've already mentioned. And emphasis of knowledge as an enabler, and the award process as a differentiator in the organization's business and competitive strategy. So we come to the quality hierarchy. There are 6 categories: uncommitted, drifters, true pushers, improvers, award winners, world class. The uncommitted organizations are the dinosaurs. They will not very last long. Going up the hierarchy, you have drifters, who are the organizations who flip from one concept to another week on week. Today it's ISO 9001, tomorrow it's something else. Tool pushers are committed to the task, they'll complete the job. Improvers are the ones who are one step ahead, like the organizations which are on the transformation route. Award winners, Deming, PPM, and other awards. And of course, world class is a Japan Quality Award. Let me share this with you. One of the award winners way back in 20 years ago in Japan was a company making mattresses. A company making mattresses got the Japan Quality Award because Japanese are very finicky about the quality of the mattresses. This is one such organization. So the last point is with regard to FMEA. FMEA, I've already explained. The basic assumption of FMEA is law. So Murphy's law is a reality irrespective of all the people who believe in positive thinking and how positive thinking will make sure no problems occur. Life on earth is far different. Okay. So there is a structured group. I just want to touch upon the 7 steps, because this is the 7 steps for those people who are already, either as tier 2 or tier 1 to the automotive sector. So there are 7 steps starting from planning and preparation, failure analysis. It goes down to various other steps, including risk analysis, step optimization, and result documentation. This is a combined approach from AIAG, Automotive Industry Action Group, 4th edition, and DDA, the German body. They've come up with the FMEA handbook, 1st edition in 2019, June. So normally a period of 3 years is given for organizations who are tier 1, 2, or tier 2 to migrate to the next standard. For those organizations who are already there, this would give them an idea. This book in itself would give them an idea of how to go about the process. So with that, I conclude my presentation, and I would like to thank all of you all for your presence.
Thank you, Mr. Vasu, for a lucid presentation on what we could expect from your book. I was wondering if Dr. Ravichandran is there. Yeah. Dr. Ravichandran.
Yeah, I am present. Yeah, I'm present, but
you.
there's a lot of echo and there is also a delay.
Right. So
I'm there. I'm very much here, sir.
Sure. So I
But
wanted
the problem is, I think there is so much of echo and lag.
Okay. That's the internet. We can hear you, Dr. Ravichandran. So I was wondering if you could offer your comments on the current manufacturing challenges and how process could help process leadership. Your thoughts on that? Dr. Ravichandran, can you hear me?
I can hear you. As I mentioned to you, there is a big time lag.
There would be a lag, and we understand that. So we wanted you to offer your thoughts on process maturity in the manufacturing industry and how it could help us moving forward.
Yeah. Okay. Thank you for this opportunity, and I'm delighted to be a part of this functional. Vasu is, of course, a good friend. He is from our same community and fraternity. He
Sir, Ravi sir, your
So,
net
same-
connectivity is very low. May I request you to switch off your video and speak? It'll be very clear. Can you switch off your video, please? Because your net connectivity is very poor there. Yes. Able to hear me, sir? The middle.
Dr. Ravichandran, can you hear me?
fraternity and the which is available in the public domain.
Uh, we were wondering if you could switch off your video, given that the bandwidth constraint is there for you. We can hear you. Would that be possible? Yeah. Right. So this is something which we would continuously grapple with. So, yeah. So while Dr. Ravichandran gets back, can we get into discussions with you, Suresh? You have been handling currently the challenges of manufacturing processes and lead.
Can you hear me now? Can you hear me? Hello? Yeah. Hello?
Yeah.
Hello?
Yeah.
Can you hear me?
Yeah, we can hear you.
Sir, we can hear you strength 5. There is a no, your strength of your net connectivity is very poor. So in the meanwhile, what I request you can switch off your video and speak. It'll be very, very clear for you as well as for us. Would you like to try that, sir?
Okay, no problem. Yeah, I'll do that. That's not an issue. Okay, I'll do that. So that I'll switch off the video. Just give me a minute. I think I got into something just different. Just give me a minute. I'll just log in again and then come back.
You're not audible, Dr. Ravichandran. So would it be possible for you to switch off your video and then try? That would give you some more bandwidth.
Yeah, can you hear me now?
Yeah.
All right. So I'll just get going with a few remarks and then maybe we can take it from there. Can you hear me? Can you hear me? Can you hear me? I can see you all, but I don't know whether you can see me or hear me. Is it any better? No?
Yeah, please go ahead, Dr. Ravichandran. We can hear you.
Okay, excellent. So I'll try to be as brief as possible given all these technological challenges. As I mentioned to you, congratulations to Vasu for putting these things together in the public domain. As far as the process maturity part of
Yeah, I guess that we have a connectivity challenge with you, Dr. Ravichandran.
I don't think so. That my Wi-Fi is showing high strength. Then what I suggest is I skip this and you please get going. I don't want to create a lot of disruptions to what's going on. Please go ahead, sir. I will sort of log out. Thank you.
Sure. Thank you very much for your indulgence, Dr. Ravichandran, and we'll wait for your bandwidth coming back so we can engage the panelists here then. So Suresh, would you just like to offer your comments on
Good evening, everyone. Especially on this release of this book, Leadership and Process Approach by my friend, Mr. Vasu Krishnan. First of all, I'd like to thank Mr. Vasu Krishnan and the MMA for inviting me to this. We've started off initially with the manufacturing components for the Ministry of Defense, where the volumes were low, where technology was challenge came in, wherein the volumes were very low with the defense sector. And repeatability was again a challenge. So that is when we decided to go into the auto sector, where we had expertise from the defense. The defense than the other sector where earlier fabrication that we were into. And wherein we had put in specialized machinery, we went into and had the technology, we went into the auto sector and initially started making interact with Mr. Vasu Krishnan. And it was a very good experience, I should say, because we had learned a lot. We were a small unit. Of course, technology was there with us, but then process approach, that was, I think, that is where the challenge came in, when we were asked to get 100 ppm certification from Hyundai if we were to continue production and supplies to their tier 1 vendors. And there Mr. Vasu Krishnan really chipped in, and then we brought in a very effective FIFO for the raw material, a single line flow for the flanges that we were making. There were close to about 5 varieties of flanges, if I'm right. And Mr. Vasu Krishnan really helped us on that, a single line flow for the product. The first off, middle off, last off inspections were totally taken care of and were made very stringent. And initially, the products were all measured and checked through verniers and micrometers, wherein a lot of components would end up with the customer with quality issues. And so I think we were guided well, wherein we were given asked to make fixtures and gauges for all the end products. So we had made gauges and fixtures for the in-process components also, wherein by the end we were able to give my customer perfect components. And all this was achievable through the guidance from Mr. Vasu Krishnan. This was pretty challenging, and we had learned a lot how to produce components without defect-free components, wherein we were awarded the 100 ppm certification. This 100 ppm certification again has helped us a lot in entering other tier 1 and OEMs also, like Sharda Motors' competitor is one, Faurecia Emission Control Technologies, a Spanish company based here, and they are again tier 1 and to Hyundai and to Renault and Toyota too. So we now with this tier 1 manufacturer also. So we are happy that the base was very well built, and Mr. Vasu Krishnan was able to really guide us on how we could go into the next level of quality, achieving quality in bulk production. Because very often we found that the component would just slip out of the inspection table and then there would be defects. And all these parameters which Mr. Vasu Krishnan had advised us and how we could achieve this was tremendous. This has also helped us in getting into automation, like we are now into turning centers and CNC milling centers. And we're now into robotizing the machining centers too. So technology has helped us really achieve the qualities required in today's competitive world. I find this book to be really useful, and I'm sure it's very simple and very concise, and the way Mr. Vasu Krishnan has gone about the whole thing, I think this should be very useful to many of the MSMEs in and around this. So I wish this book all success, and the author, Mr. Vasu Krishnan, many more books like this to come. Thank you.
Thank you, Suresh. May I invite Commodore Menon now to offer your observations and comments on the book, as well as you have been working with Vasu for a longer time, so give some personal anecdotal evidences of his process orientation.
Good evening to all of you. I think I'm the least qualified to sit on the panel. And the only reason is Vasu knows me well. And you have seen from my name, I belong to the Navy. So we never say no. I'm told, 1948 war with Pakistan, when things were not going well, the reporters asked the Defense Minister, Baldev Singh, what's happening? Aren't you putting enough troops there? He said, no, we have put a lot of army, a lot of air force, we'll put more. But if required, we'll move some Navy also there. So luckily, there was no WhatsApp group at that time to catch on that statement. How will the ships be taken there? So also, I never say no. And also at home, we never say no to the wives. So I have requested my wife, because once she said when I was speaking to youngsters, that was your speech was full of opportunities. So I felt I had given the youngsters ideas to start businesses. Then she said, no, you stupid. You had enough opportunity to sit down. So, but you didn't do it. So whenever you feel bored of what I'm saying, yawn or raise your hand. I'll get the hint. Now, while we were sitting there, Vasu's best friend is here. And he said, Vasu is known for very detailed analysis of even minor things. So, and when you consult with him, very, very interesting that he does such a thorough job. And if anybody else, an auditor comes and points out a mistake in the quality systems or anything, he gets really upset because he says once the system is perfect, everything is all right. Now, he has talked about PDCA and also said the workplace happiness. When he was working, there's no tension. Now, that comes out of a very good system-oriented approach, a process-oriented approach. Now, Deming propounded this PDCA cycle, which is, then he also said, never blame the worker. People should not feel threatened at their workplace. They should not have the fear in their minds. So if you are afraid, you tend to be a little tensed up. At the same time, it doesn't mean you are casual about it. And he also, Vasu wrote a first statement, one of the slides. We said nobody comes to office with an idea of making 15 mistakes, 6 serious ones and say 3 minor ones and some other medium ones. Nobody says everyone wants to come home, leave home, come to office, do a good job. But mistakes do occur. Now, the whole thing is about system-based approach will be to learn from the mistakes, not recurring, which it is easy to say, very difficult to practice. We see it in our daily life. For example, in the morning, 7 o'clock or 8 o'clock, you'll find suddenly the power will get switched off. And then it will come back in about 10 minutes time. If you really go into the details and give the solution, nobody is willing to listen because the approach is not top-down. See, the lower level or the chief engineers level, they don't listen. They may agree with you, but they are afraid whether they have the authority to implement what corrective action is required. Now, this book is very easy for people who are practicing. It's a beautiful guide, especially when he has talked about policy deployment, which is not very commonly talked about because people talk about Kaizen, continuous improvement, mistake proofing, and various Japanese terms have been floated around, because initially when we started on the quality movement, a lot of these gurus from Japan used to come. Somebody used to talk on TQM, somebody will on TPM, somebody said Kaizen. And we had a lot of seminars in MMA and various other professional organizations, these people coming and talking down to you, and you listen. But basically, all these approaches are good. And this book covers in reasonably good details about it so that you understand what's the difference between TPM approach and the TQM approach. People just blabber about it. Now, there are a few things which he said, which I thought I should highlight a little bit. One is about effectiveness and efficiency. He said efficiency is doing the right things. The efficiency is about doing things right. Effectiveness is doing the things which is right. That is, you do the right things, not doing the things right. So what happened in effectiveness is, most of us got laid down system, procedure, work instructions, etc. You're not sure how good it is being done. So what is effectiveness in a workplace? I would say, if you look at effectiveness, the person should know the job, should be trained, he should have the skill, he should have the ability. Second is, that is, he has the knowledge. Secondly, he should be very clear of his role in that particular process, what he should do and what he should not do. There is third important thing which normally you find missing in most organizations, that is a commitment of the person involved. How committed you are to, you have the knowledge, you know your role, but you are not committed. You see in many government organizations, Indian Airlines, everything, why it failed is because of this lack of commitment in the employees. You can drive it by fear, like it happened in the emergency, but it's not the right way to do it. So, very easy to have systems. Effective system means there is a culture which is brought in by the top management and selection of the people in the process. I mean, for the employment, how committed they are on their own, self-motivated people as they call. And another thing I'll tell you is this, though the book talks about leadership and process approach, there is no direct connection as you can make out. He has not discussed styles of leadership or what leadership is about, but every chapter brings out in a subtle manner. For example, the project management one, I was very impressed. Kundramukh project, there he shows the style of functioning of the Canadian consultant, who was very effective. Like, he took the Jeep and went for inspection himself, didn't wait for the driver. Whereas an Indian general manager or MD will have to wait for the driver to take the car. There's a cultural factor. Supposing Indian MD takes the car himself and it gets minor accident, till his retirement, that audit objection will stand in his name. There are some cultural factors, there are some freedom, social things. You cannot tick off a driver because he is late, because then the union will come down heavily on you. And there is plus and minus about the labor laws and things like that. But culture, the style of management which we adopt is also culturally influenced. So when you read this book, in a subtle way, he has brought out, another thing is Kelderlam-Toft experience, which he said, it's a beautiful example of a learning organization. Though formally he hasn't used the word learning organization. You have learned, you did something 2 years back, you learned from it. Don't do the same mistake. Only stupid people repeat the mistakes. And the preventive action is always based on any error or mistakes which happen. He always tell you if something is gone wrong, you correct it. Either you repair it or rework. Now, most of you know the difference. Rework is something which will get back to the original quality that you want. That is, say, he has got some line shirt. Group Captain Vijay Kumar has some striped shirt. Now I am specifying there should be a pocket. Now when the shirt was made, there is no pocket. So we ask him, stitch a pocket. Now the material which is available is with the, if you want the same length, it is not aligned. The lines are not aligned. So it's a repaired shirt. He can be put for alternate use. Poor guy can't wear it to office, but definitely for when he goes for vegetable marketing, it's okay. Also, if without the pocket, it can be downgraded and sold at 10 rupees less. You can put it to alternate use. So in the case of this PDCA, what happens is when you prevent a mistake happening, the whole idea is to prevent recurrence. Corrective action is once a mistake has occurred. It has occurred. Now you prevent recurrence. And if an organization or a system creates recurring defect, recurring problems, then there is something fundamentally wrong. And as very rightly Group Captain and everybody stresses, it to the top is the important person. Everything depends on the boss. Though he gets more salary and bonus and allowances you crib, when the organization goes down the drain, the first person to be fired is the senior most top. And especially in a naval ship, we have a saying, he's the old man. For everything, he is responsible. He doesn't know what is happening. Another example I want to leave, what is a detail for meticulously, an eye for a detail, they say. Does it mean nitpicking and, going around over supervising work and things like that? No. Someone told me a story of a reception being held for ladies in a, say after a cricket match or something, after men thought they should invite their parents or something like that. So for the evening. So hand wash, toilet, everything was set up. So everything you looked around. So where is the ladies' toilet? So the organizer shifted some toilet from one side to the other and said ladies on the other side. Somebody went and had a look, and they are all men's loo. No commode, nothing. So the label only said ladies. So it cannot be used. So eye for a detail, if it would have been such an embarrassment for someone to have neglected that important thing. Label is there, but doesn't fulfill the requirement. So eye for a detail is always good. Doesn't mean micromanaging. This book is not easy to read. I can tell you, even though I know him and I have been interacted, I told him I cannot read it in about 1 month's time. And my wife was telling, you know the subject, why are you reading so much? I said, look, everything is condensed in a very crisp way. And almost every element in this implementation is also followed. Plus, there is a whole lot of data and charts. It has taken tremendous amount of effort. So it's not an easy read. And don't read it at night. Because I remember we were doing a subject in engineering when we didn't like that subject. It is very complex mathematics and we knew we will never use it. We are all from the maintenance side. So we told the professor, give us something on electronics, power electronics or something. So he said, all right, I'll put a professor to teach you. Then towards the end of the semester, the head of the department came, Venkat Rao, a very bright, intelligence oozing out of his ears, eyes and everything. He said, you haven't done this subject. So, and we don't have time to teach you, but you should know, after all, you're getting a degree from here without knowing the subject. So I suggest you read this book. It's about 300 odd pages, full of equation, mathematics, calculus and everything. When you are tired at night, go to bed, take this book and read. And you can enjoy it. So we all agreed. And we found the best thing when you can't feel sleepy is to take this book and lie down. And after the first 2 sentences, we are sound asleep. So never read this book at night. It is meant for very serious reading, daytime, over a cup of tea. Keep it next to you, especially youngsters or those who have just started their life in manufacturing. Someone experienced like Suresh would find it very easy to relate because everything is very easy to relate. But then it is a learning process even for you. Certain things, next time when he reads it, and second time he reads it, he will improve something more. With these few words, I think say nobody yawned. I hope I didn't bore you to the extent I thought I will be able to. I'm sorry for my poor performance. So have a nice time, and I leave the floor for Dr.
Thank you, Commodore Menon. I want to open up the session for question answer to lighten up the stuff. I just wanted to check with Vasu. Which part of your professional role did you find more exciting? The quality auditor's role or the earlier insiders championing the processes within the company?
Let me put it this way. Yeah. Okay. The exciting part of it, undoubtedly, I would put it as in three parts. Part A is Bhilai Steel Plant. Nobody forgets his first job. No, yeah, that's one thing. In fact, in my particular case, let me share this anecdote with you. In 2004, I went back to Bhilai Steel Plant. Saal bath, like this thing. My colleague was there as the general manager of the shop. And coincidentally, I went to the same furnace in which I was a melter. And there were these young graduate engineers wondering who is this guy come from somewhere. I just told them one word, Dastana Diji. I borrowed a pair of hand gloves. On the same furnace, the same job was going on in which I was an expert. After a gap of 30 years, I did the same job to demonstrate to them that look, I'm still part of the course. So talking about Bhilai Steel Plant, I went after that in 2014. Then when I went there, the general manager of the shop, he spoke to the. I was coming in a vehicle, so he said he got me in a very circuitous route. So when I asked him, why did you bring me on this route? You could have come directly to your office and you would have walked from the walkway. No, you said 1968 back, so I thought you'd be an old person. So that was in 2014. 2022, I went back again. 2022, I had gone for a tournament in Bhilai, ITF tournament, and then I said I must see what's the latest there. So a cold call went to steelmaking shop number 3. I didn't know the guy from Adam. I said, look, I'm so and so. I want to see your plant. He assigned the moment he heard that I was from SMS1, which was shut down. So that was the third visit. And coincidentally, the guide who took me to the rail and structural mill, I asked him, do we have spare time? He said, yes, and let's go to SMS1. It turned out in SMS1, he had never seen it. It shut down. I was the guide to the guide. I was telling him this is what happened at various points in time. So that's a different era. That is the formative era in which you're physically in a different thing, and life was just kind of opening up. That's one stage. The second part of it was with regard to being able to put into practice or was the Hyundai experience. The ability to what you call make what I would call it as out of the box solutions. Out of the box solutions to the customer. So that was very satisfying because, as I said, there was a great deal of what I would call it as respect from Hyundai in terms of expecting a well thought out answer rather than an immediate answer. So that was the second part of it. The third part of it was, of course, having been on all sides of the table as a management representative, as a consultant, and also as a lead auditor. The last part of it was equally exciting because as a lead auditor, you have to guide your team to deliver in-depth audit within a short period of time, and for a couple of years it was remote. It was not on site, which was all the more difficult. So I would put it as these are the three organizations which kind of brought out the best in the person. at least in my case.
Thanks a lot for that narration of the inflection points in your career, and that was pretty stuff. So I have a question from Raj Kumar from Salem for Commodore Menon. And the question is, from your experience in the defense, Navy, and the corporate world, which side do you think has much better process, compliance, and orientation? Did you find defense to be better than the corporate world, or the other way around?
Who asked this question?
From Salem, this question is coming.
Oh, okay. Apple and oranges. There's a difference. Because in the defense forces also, systems are not static. They change. And we have to follow the procedure and process, role clarity and all very meticulously, otherwise it can lead to fatal results. In the corporate sector, if you want to survive the war in the competitive, very, very killing environment, business environment, you will not produce a single bad item. If you produce a bad item, it means you are running an underground factory, producing bad items, and overground factory, which is reflected in your account books. Now, the entire aim of the good organization to shut down the underground factory, which runs parallel without anybody's knowledge, creating problems and losses to the company. Just imagine if there is a bad product or there's an accident. If there is a bad product which has come out, you cannot sell it to the customer. If you give a bad product and you have a publicity, you lose 10 customers. To win that one lost customer, you have to spend 4 times the money or 10 times the money. And if you word of mouth, the experience and with the current level of communication, the risk is very high. In the defense forces, we don't have runners up. In the industry, perhaps you can say the top player is this, second player is this, like Jio is first, Airtel is next. You can do that. Each one has their own strengths and weaknesses, their own business models, they survive. In the case of a war, you cannot say, oh, you are the winner of, you lost so many tanks, so many this thing, and so many are there. No, the result is yes or no. It's like a boy, either a girl is pregnant or not pregnant. There's nothing in between. She may be pregnant, you can't say. Similarly, you cannot, you have won the war or not won the war. You have been defeated means you had it. So the armed forces, it's a do and die. In the business process, what happens is you may be able to survive in a where the market is large with a dominant player and a couple of not so dominant players. But everyone has to be running. Like the famous cliche about the tiger and the what do you call the antelope. You see, both run. One who runs faster survives. If the antelope runs, it can survive. If the tiger runs slow, he can't get the food. So it has to run faster. Whoever running faster will survive. So this is true in the civil organization, the commercial organization. And a lot of lessons have been learned from the defense to service. For example, the quality management system itself has come from a NATO document, a middle 9858. And from there, the Britishers took it. And similarly, bird charts and various logistics, the term logistics itself comes from the armed forces. We call it logistics. Nowadays, we don't call it materials management and all that. But there are so many lessons learned in the civil side, especially on the quality PQR, which were being practiced without the terminologies. But now we have got a structured view of looking at these systems. I hope I have clarified.
Thank you, Commodore. Suresh, there is 2 very interesting questions for you. Number 1 is from Radhika Krishnan from Pondicherry. And the question is, what's the role of technology in process compliance, process development, and process innovation? That's number one question. And the second question coming your way is from Mr. Subramanian from Chennai. And his question is, how do you balance between the macro view of the sector with the finer details of the processes?
That's the first question.
Right.
Well, in today's conditions, like from what I can see is unless we are able to upgrade our technology, upgrade our process by improving the technology involved. For example, I can give you a small example as to what's happened in my welding section. There is a lot of, as we all know, especially in Tamil Nadu of late, we are having a lot of issues on as far as labor is concerned, especially in the last couple of months. And the vagaries of labor is so high that every other day, my colleagues on the shop floor will have to be totally attentive as to how the production is going on. So now we are forced to robotize that part of the section. It was so initially, in fact, we had delayed that project since over a year, thinking that yes, the investment for a small MSME is going to be too high, but then we are now forced into it. And now the priority for even the machine components have become that because getting consistent workmen on the turning and milling centers have also become challenging. So now we are robotizing that section of the shop also. So technology, unless upgraded, will going to be a lot of hindrance for growth. And unless there's growth, MSMEs, survival of the MSME is going to be at stake. So I think this should answer your question, Radhika. And I'm not too sure about this question of his ability to have a macro. Yeah, please.
I'll answer the question on the one about the macro view.
Yeah.
Is the ability to have a macro view equally important as an eye for details?
Yeah.
Yes, of course. See, when you talk in terms of a macro view, it's something like the eagle. The eagle at an altitude of about maybe a kilometer or so is surveying the view, the landscape for prey, and it's able to home in on the prey, which is a micro view. That's an example I can say. The other aspect in terms of how does the leader do it? Well, in actual practice, there is a structure for this. This is known as a management review. Now, the management review process is periodical. It looks at the macro view in terms of macro views, process measures of performance, which includes financial results. The micro view is the aspect pertaining to the non-conformances, the aspect pertaining to opportunities for improvement, the aspects pertaining to new product development. Now, all of these find a place in recording in the minutes of management review. That's one way it can be done. So the issue really is what I would call it as leadership being in the present moment. When a macro view is called for, the leadership trait is to have that particular view. And if it's a question of combining the two, the periodic management review is the way to go about it. Let me share another example. Before these words came up, long before these words, the words came up, this was already in practice. In Tisco, I remember way back in 1960, towards the late 60s, there used to be a 1-hour meeting in those days, attended by the general superintendent, who was the executive director level, and the corresponding shop superintendents were general managers. This was a 1-hour, 1-page meeting at 9 o'clock in the morning. And this was attended by the people who are attending the meeting are all sitting in their respective offices. They are not going to the other office. And attendance is mandatory, and they have to, answer to the point with sufficient degree of detail. It was extremely successful. And the reason why people were given the option of staying in their respective offices was because they required access to data and also for other people to contribute. So I have shared one example of both. I have shared the example of my former boss in Bhilai Steel Plant, who was a one-man army when it came to answering questions from his counterpart from Durgapur. And during the conversation, he transited seamlessly through 5 languages: English, Hindi, Russian, Bengali, and Gurmukhi, to convey depending on who was there on the other side. So yeah.
Right, that was a good metaphorical answer to the macro and micro
Yes,
view.
that's right, yeah.
So the other question which is coming your way, Vasu, is from Mr. Ramalingam from Hyderabad.
Yes, please.
He asked that in PDCA cycle, you said that checking is often missing. Is this a behavioral issue or is this a process deficiency?
Well, there are 2 parts. Number one, it's a process deficiency. If C is missing in the PDCA cycle, it is missing. Whereas it is also an aspect pertaining to what is mistaken organizationally, that checking does not add value. So earlier the concept was value is added only by people who are in production, people who are in marketing, people who are in quality, and people who are in maintenance are not perceived to add value. But these are the people who enable the performance. So if you look at it from that point of view, it's a combination of the basic point is behavioral to the extent that it's difficult for the person to audit or assess his own work.
Right.
And organizationally to the extent it is reinforced. It's a combination of both.
Great. So we will live in the moment and we wonder if there is 1 or 2 questions from the audience here. We have almost exhausted the time and it's a wrap up. Want to thank you, Vasu, Commodore Menon and Suresh. This was a pretty excellent conversation around the process approach of leadership. And we hope that this would be useful to everybody. And I hand over to Group Captain.
Thank you, Dr. John. Very gentlemen, the big round of applause. It's a difficult subject. And we are indeed delighted because a lot of people get immensely benefited by this, because we strongly believe that MSME is the backbone. They should be given a lot of insights on issues which we discussed this evening. Thank you so much, sir, for taking your time. May I request you to please step forward and do us honor of accepting a small memento. Step forward. Thank you very much. Can you come up for a group picture?